Yo, what is going on everyone? Guiding Light here, and in this video, I'm going to be bringing you guys a showcase of the fully spec'd out Eternal Willpower. So if you do not feel like grinding out a bunch of Ultimate Descendants, putting in hundreds and hundreds of hours, trying to get the best build on all these different characters so that you can just be strong enough to take out any mission, I'm going to show you guys how you can basically become as strong as an Ultimate character without having to actually unlock one. You just simply level up the weapon the way that I show you. After explaining these 3 different builds, you're going to see how you can be just as strong as an ultimate character without ever even having to touch one of the ultimates. So you can solo bosses on just about any character using this AR build. Now this gun took over 3 or 4 days to build, has over 10 catalysts in it, and is completely maxed out. Now in this video, I'm going to show you guys 3 perfected builds that will get you through any mission in the game and even help you guys to solo some of the hard mode bosses. I'm going to show you guys me taking down a solo boss without even using any abilities at all, just strictly using this weapon. So stay tuned for the entire video. I'm going to break down 3 different builds, 1 build for bosses, 1 for missions, and then a 3rd one that I'm still sort of working on that I think is going to be pretty insane once it's perfected. Now, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe because I'm going to be making a ton of build guides for weapons and characters all across the game. And be sure to drop a like on this video because I did probably put over 30 hours and a ton of resources into making this one. So hopefully you enjoy it. I do believe this to be basically the best build for this weapon. The only thing that could maybe get a little bit better is the roll. However, I've gotten pretty close to perfect on that as well. The only thing really that I could say could get maybe slightly better is perhaps the reload. And there's actually builds I've made where the reload is better, but this is just my favorite and all around best one for DPS, bosses, and all missions. So I'll go into the solo devour boss fight and I will not use any abilities. I will simply just use the AR and you'll be able to see how much damage this does. Now the only difference between this boss build and the build I run for common missions is only 1 mod. So you can switch back and forth between that mod anytime you're not in an intercept battle and you're pretty much good to go. So that's the perfect thing about this setup, is that it's so simple just to switch back and forth. Now in this fight, you can see just how quickly you're able to deal damage to the boss. Now I did not use any abilities whatsoever. It's just purely damage from the weapon itself. And you can see within 10 seconds, you have his shields completely off. So for any boss, you can shred through any armor piece, get them staggered so quickly, and you can take down bosses with this weapon extremely fast. You don't even have to use abilities or anything in order to deal this type of damage output. Now this will require a very specific build if you're trying to make it do this much damage against the boss, but you do not have to scale this up this much. If you're just trying to take it into normal missions, you'll still be fine without having this. But I have, like I said, I have 3 different setups, 1 for normal missions and 1 for the bosses, and then also a 3rd one that I've just been messing around with, trying to see if I can make that one better as well. So I'll show you guys the first 2 that I've sort of perfected so far, but I'm still working on the 3rd as of right now. Here's a quick look at the rolls I have on the weapon. Keep in mind, there's still a little bit of room for improvement there, as you can see with that blue stat, but it's almost perfect. Now there's a few things that I could definitely change around on this weapon, but I wanted to keep it general for being able to take it into normal missions and also be able to swap it out to bosses as well. So here's a quick look at all the individual mods I'm running and all the stat boosts that they give me. Now I think this is pretty much as perfect as it gets, but I'll show you guys the one flaw I think there is in the weapon, and I was trying to adjust for it maybe on the next catalyst. However, that was the one thing I have not slotted in yet. So as you take a look, you're going to see everything that I have slotted in if you want to take a look or like copy this roll. But I want to show you guys the 2nd and 3rd build as well, because there's a few things that sort of need to be explained as to how it could get a little bit better, and the mod you want to swap around depending on whether you're in bosses or if you're in normal missions. So as you can see, here's a quick look at all the rest of the mods that give you ATK, recoil, reload, things like that. I don't have a problem with the recoil or the reload. I know the reload is a little bit slow. I wish it was like a ½ second faster, but with the amount of damage it does, it's really not a problem. And I also really haven't seen any issues with recoil either. So this is the mod that I would run when running boss fights, lethal finish. As you can see, I wasn't able to max it out all the way, and that's why I said this is pretty much the one flaw with this build. It actually could get better at defeating bosses if I was able to completely max this out. The only reason why I haven't done it yet is because when I originally crafted the weapon, I wanted to have a build which was actually good for clearing out missions and bosses. Now if you want to make it so you can shred through the boss as fast as possible, the mod for the missions is not going to be the same, And so when I made the weapon and I put in all of the different catalysts, the one that I was missing was for a different mod type. So as you can see here, when we go into the weapon, this one here in the bottom right corner needs to be slotted back into actually having no socket in order for me to be able to put in that other mod. So if you want to copy this build, you can. This is going to be the socket that you need to put in if you want to put on the build for clearing out missions. And then if you want the build for when you clear out bosses to make it as strong as possible, you would want to take that bottom right corner and just make it clear. And you would be able to slot in that precision mod and max it all the way out with no issues. Now I have other weapons or other roles of this weapon that say they have higher DPS. However, when you stack up all the perks and the crit damage, it actually doesn't have higher DPS at all. So sometimes those numbers are not correct, I've noticed, and sometimes it's better just to take a look at the perks yourself and maybe even test it out. Another thing you will need if you're trying to make the role or the build for bossing is this set here. This is called the Annihilation Auxiliary set. And as you can see, once you slap on all 4 of the pieces, it says firearm ATK increases proportionally to the ratio of max health lost up to 25%. When your health drops below 50%, your mana slows down 22%, but it doesn't matter because you're getting that 26% boost to your ATK. So this will make up for any damage that you would need to do with your mana recovery. On top of that, 22% mana recovery, you can actually just put on Frugal Mindset. What that does is it makes it so that it counteracts this a little bit. You can still pop your abilities, maybe not spam them infinitely. It's gonna some of those infinite skill builds, but the power you get with this weapon actually takes over for some of those skills. And when you combine it with other stats, other roles like the perks I have on my, it ends up doing more damage, I think, than the skills themselves. Now, one more thing you can do actually to take this a step further is go into your build and put on this Overwhelming Shield mod. What this is going to do is it's going to lock your health into 1 HP at all times. And so you're going to have these benefits all the time. Now, one thing I'm not sure about is it says for this mod to work, it says HP has to be lost. Now, with this other mod where it locks your health in at 1, you're technically never really going to lose HP. You're always going to be locked in at 1. So I'm not sure if that would actually work or not. It says when HP is 50% or lower, your mana recovery obviously is going to be lower, but it doesn't necessarily say that 26% ATK boost will kick in because it says you have to lose the HP first. So that's not something I was able to fully test out as to whether or not it would kick in or not when activating that 1 HP mod. And that's why I was saying that third build I'm working on is still kind of being tested, but the other two work flawlessly. Now this is going to get into a whole different type of build that you'll have to make where you're going to increase your shield and things like that. But I just figured I'd let you know that there is a way to get these abilities at all times, but you're going to have to take your health down to 1 and then basically build your whole ability around that. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can slot this around and into your actual character's build. But if you want to get more in depth into my actual VS build and anything about that, I have made a video on my entire VS build and you guys can take a look at that if you'd like. So very quickly, we'll take it into a normal mission. You'll see how fast you can clear out a normal mission with the other build that I made. This is not going to be the boss build. This is going to be with the other mod. And I'll show you guys how that build works in just a second. So all you have to do, as you can see, you can literally take down any enemy in about 1 to 2 shots. And you can literally just spam through every single mission. It's essentially like running an ultimate character all the way spec'd out, but instead of having the power in your abilities, the power goes into your weapon instead. So it's pretty equal to what would happen when you had a fully spec'd out ultimate, but instead of having the character itself and having to rely on the abilities, you're able to just do that damage with your weapon instead, and then you can combine it with the ultimate damage too, which is why you can take down the bosses so quickly. When we take it into the hardest missions available to us, which are these void missions with 150% difficulty, you can see that just about every single enemy you go after is still going down in 1 to 2 shots. So by far, this is one of the best weapons in the game. I think it's really, really, really worth going and leveling it up, especially if you can get this build before next week's DLC, because I think it's going to help quite a bit in those new missions. Now, I'm not saying you have to copy it perfectly. In fact, like I said, it does have that small flaw. If you swap out that socket, it actually could get a little bit better because then you could actually upgrade Lethal Finish to do more damage to bosses. Now, let me show you how this second build works and why it is I chose to actually not do that, because I figured this was better for overall missions. And in fact, it actually 100% is better for overall missions. And I'll show you exactly why that is. So in order to achieve the proper damage output for when defeating a boss, you do need this sharp precision shot mod on. It says fire rate goes down by 20%, but when you pull the trigger, you get a +4 boost of ATK for every 6 seconds, and it stacks up to 10 times. Now, the reason why this is better than some of the other mods is because it actually doesn't have a cooldown, and so you can continue that damage on throughout the entire fight. Now, the second mod that I chose to use, which is also still really, really good in Void Intercept battles, it's just not perfected, is with this other mod. Now, this one is called Sweeping Squad. Everything else in the build is the same, but when you're going through other missions or if you're just trying to copy my build specifically, what you want to put on is Sweeping Squad. It says when defeating enemies, firearm ATK is up 10% for 5 seconds every single time you defeat an enemy, and you can stack it 3 times. So the reason why this is a bit better is because you don't get the reduction in fire rate, so you do more damage output over time because of that. But then also you get the ATK boost for every time you take down an enemy 3 times stacked over, and there's no cooldown like there is on some of the other mods. That's what makes this one better than so much of the others. Now, the only reason why I would never use it in a boss is because you're never going to even get the benefits from it, as you have to defeat a different enemy first. And when you're defeating the boss, if you're trying to get down one phase, there aren't going to be any other enemies to hit, and so this mod would be completely wasted in those circumstances. But I didn't want to build the entire weapon across the circumstance that would almost never occur, and so this is definitely the best mod to run for the overall build. Now that's pretty much it for this one, guys. There's definitely a few small things I could do to make it better. With that blue slot still being in there for chill ATK, I could very easily re-roll this, make it do even better. But I think at this point it would only be maybe 5% better, and I'm literally one-shotting almost every single enemy that I see, so I don't really see any reason to sit here and still dump any more resources into the weapon. Now, hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. I'm going to be making a lot more videos trying to get any other guns up to this point and make the master builds for each weapon in the game. So if you're interested in that, definitely subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.